All right, guys, I just wanted to discuss some obsolete NFL stadiums. Of course, we know about the horrible stadiums in the NFL that are going to be replaced, Nissan Stadium, FedEx Field, but what are some current obsolete stadiums that really don't get any hate, but at this point in time, the design, the architecture of it would never happen in modern day? We're going to be talking about those. All of these stadiums have been built within the same time frame, mid to late 1990s. And I just think it's kind of an interesting thing. So obsolete stadiums that are currently out of date by modern standards, but they're not bad enough to be knocked down or for the fans to really demand a new stadium. The first one we're going to be looking at, this is one that I'm shocked there's not more dialogue in, at least the renovation. It's Bank of America Stadium, opening in 1996 in Charlotte, North Carolina, home of the Carolina Panthers. It's got just two ridiculous walls of seats, something like this. I mean, listen, you can argue this is like Arrowhead, or maybe it's Arrowhead's ugly brother. I guess you can argue maybe it's Arrowhead's ugly brother, but Arrowhead at least has the charm of kind of being a historic stadium. This was built in 96, long after Arrowhead, and the technology of it, the overall design, the massive upper deck, we would not see a design like this in modern time. There's just no cover for the fans or anything like that. We know most stadiums, actually the last 6 stadiums, have either included a roof or an awning, because the Bills Stadium has an awning over it. That's happening in 2026. No protection from the elements. Charlotte, North Carolina, you would think there would be motivation to host major events, and this stadium kind of sits just obsolete, hosting the ACC Championship, hosting Carolina Panthers home games, some concerts, but that's really it. And I think in the coming 2 or 3 years, we're going to get a lot of dialogue out of Carolina about possibly adding a roof, but I really don't see much of a benefit in that. I would probably say wait 2 or 3 years. This was built in 96. There's going to be some people saying this is too old and we just need to build a new stadium. There is nothing special about this stadium. There is no unique, crazy features, which is really funny because when I look this stadium up on Wikipedia, the first thing it says is stadium features. Bank of America Stadium has many unique external features. Look at the exterior of it. It's like, oh, it has a panther. Whoop-de-doo. It's just a bland stadium, and it really doesn't get any heat. But when you actually look at it, it's like, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing special about it, and there really hasn't been very many renovations to it. Like, the only renovation that I saw was some like MLS soccer thing. They installed some signs to the exterior of it. Whoop-de-doo. There was a renovation plan for the actual exterior of it that didn't end up happening. I don't know, you know how these things happen. They don't have the money, they can't do it. But we will see if they go with a renovation. I would say the next 4 or 5 years, they're going to have to do something to it to at least modernize it a little bit. You know, this is Charlotte, North Carolina. That's a city that you would think would want to host some major events. I mean, take a look at Atlanta, Georgia, and they build dome after dome. First the Georgia Dome. Now they've got that Mercedes-Benz, you know, one of the newer super stadiums of the NFL. They've already hosted a Super Bowl. They've hosted SEC championships. They've hosted college football playoff games. It just seems like such a missed opportunity with Bank of America Stadium being really as bland and just kind of a weak overall shell of a stadium. So I would say that's a stadium that's currently obsolete. There's no way anything like that would get built today. It was built in 96. The next one we're going to be looking at is TIAA Bank Field. What a great name that is. This was built in 1996. It took a year and a half of construction. That's how small it is. This is, well, actually, you know what? The current Buffalo Bills Stadium might have a smaller footprint, but this is 1A and 1B with the Bills. And to give you an example, the Bills are replacing their stadium. They're getting a new one in 2026. So they need to do something with this stadium. Nothing like this would be built today in terms of the NFL. This looks like a Pee-wee college, what is it, XFL type arena or whatever, stadium. It is very, very small. It has a relatively, small upper deck. And they did do some renovations to it. I'll give them that. They added a pool. Some people like that. Some people don't. Personally, if I was the owner, I'm not putting a pool in my stadium, especially a public pool. I just think it looks so unprofessional, personally. But you know what? I do like the addition of the Cabanas, Raymond James Stadium, for Tampa Bay. They did that as well. And it's a nice vibe with it being in Florida. But this was like an expansion stadium for the NFL with Jacksonville getting the Jaguars. And this is back in the mid-90s. So you're thinking Jacksonville's kind of a smaller community. We're not going to build that big of a stadium. And now you're talking 2.5 decades later. They're kind of stuck with this. And they're going around, apparently, I read something about a week ago. They're asking the citizens of the city for like $750 million for renovations to the stadium that got completely, voted down. So they're not doing that. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but this stadium needs something. It needs renovations. It needs God. It needs a miracle. I mean, this thing, there's not one special thing about it. You know what it kind of reminds me of? Aloha Stadium in Hawaii. And what happened with Aloha Stadium is, we know the NFL, they used to go to Hawaii. It was great. The players would actually try. They would actually tackle. And then the NFL league officials went there 1 year, and they're like, yeah, this stadium's a dump. We're not coming back here. And Aloha Stadium basically closed. This kind of reminds me of it. The seating configuration, it's just, at least they got a little renovation to it. I'll give them that. This is where the world's biggest cocktail party, the college football game between Georgia and Florida, always gets played, which kind of surprises me. I mean, in this stadium, you want to play a nice neutral site game? I don't know. But this stadium is completely obsolete at this point. The NFL would never attempt to build something like this. And the biggest thing I can say about this is Jacksonville, Florida. I mean, I don't think they've ever hosted a Super Bowl. It's because of the stadium. So nice weather, actually like perfect weather in Jacksonville in the winter. It's like 65 degrees, but the stadium is so bad they really can't host a major event. Next, we're going to be looking at the First Energy Stadium, which was called Cleveland Brown Stadium. Now it's called First Energy Stadium. And I have to say, this is a stadium that did get a really good renovation, and it really modernized it back in 2014. The 2 end zones got renovated. They chopped off a lot of the bleacher seats, and they added in nice scoreboards that really are futuristic. So I will give the Browns credit for that. But overall, the story goes, this was a very rushed project. It was built quickly because they got the Browns back in Cleveland, and it is just really standard, really bland overall look to it. Just looking at the exterior, there's not one thing special. Built in 99. Again, kind of a rushed project. And apparently the Browns, the last 3 weeks, they've been in the news. And apparently the Browns and Jimmy Haslam, the owner, they're obsessed with getting a dome. They might move out of here by apparently the lease is up in 2028. I think worst case scenario, this thing is, by 2028, they're out of this stadium, maybe even sooner. That's how much they don't like this. They want to host Final Fours. They want to host the Super Bowl. They need a dome or a retractable roof to do it. And this stadium, it's got the 3-deck approach on both sides, the bigger upper deck. It's just this design, the architecture of it, the exterior of it, it's completely obsolete. The only good thing is the renovated end zones with the scoreboards. Those look nice. Those look modernized. But they almost look out of place because just the overall design of it is so bland. So First Energy Stadium, I would say, is obsolete. And they are trying to get a new stadium mainly because they want a roof. And really, there's no sense in putting a roof on this thing. You might as well just build a new one. in a different spot of Cleveland. So we will see what happens there. And the final one we're going to be looking at is Aloha Field or Heinz Field. I mean, these corporate names are just killing me. Home of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Pittsburgh Panthers. I will say I do like the seating, but I highly doubt they would do seating like that color. The reason they don't do seating with a distinct color like that, like bright yellow, is because it's really easy to tell when the place isn't sold out because you can see like the seats actually stick out. People wonder why MetLife looks the way it does because it's basically like camo. It's because like you can't tell when it's empty because it looks like camo. But so I don't think they would do a seating color like that. But I do like that the seats are bright yellow because I think it gives the stadium a unique look to it. But outside of that, this stadium is so bland, very similar to the Browns Stadium. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing that sticks out. In Pittsburgh, you know, it's a nice city. You know, it'll be interesting. I wonder, we really haven't heard anything about them possibly getting a new stadium. I did see on Wikipedia that they expanded the seating. I don't even know where they would expand seating to. Seems like it's been the same amount of seats, you know, since it opened in the late 90s, but apparently in 2015 they did do a seating expansion. Other than that, I haven't seen really any renovations, and the exterior of this is, I think, even worse than the Browns exterior. So this stadium is just completely obsolete. There's no way something like this would get built today, and that is kind of another little obsolete stadium. And then one stadium that is quickly becoming obsolete is MetLife. It's not there yet, because it was built in like 2010, but I'll tell you what, in 15 years when it's still up, I'll tell you right now, MetLife is going to be the worst stadiums in the NFL. It is so boring. I understand they built it for two teams, but that is a complete eyesore. MetLife is an eyesore. And in 10 to 15 years, when it's still up and the Browns get a new stadium and, you know, the Commanders get a new stadium and maybe the Steelers start planning one and Jacksonville's got to do something, it's going to quickly fall down the list and be one of the worst stadiums in the NFL. It is just so bland, and I cannot believe that thing was built in 2010. I mean, compare it to the Cowboys Stadium. Say what you want about Jerry Jones, but that was really like the first super stadium in the NFL. I mean, the thing legitimately looks like a spaceship. So those are just some different obsolete NFL stadiums. We will see if they decide to renovate any of them. I know the Browns want a new stadium by 2028. I know Jacksonville is asking around for money for renovations. And then you've got Carolina, who you figure Carolina would make a move on that place at some point. I know there's been like some preliminary talk about either getting a roof on top of Bank of America Stadium or just building a new one, but it really hasn't amounted to anything. I'm guessing you're going to have to wait a few years to really, start talking about a new Carolina Panthers stadium. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.